Hi, welcome back. My name's Chris. You know what we do on this channel? We share wise advice for language learners who want to get good and get results. And before we start, we're going to be talking about curriculum design, making your own language curriculum. If you are currently a builder of your own language curriculum such as Anki and you find it wonderful, well, this is intended for guidance, for people who don't have your experience. If it's working well for you, wonderful. But of course everyone's welcome to stay. So can a person build their own language curriculum to learn a language? Well, yes, they can. Of course they can. Who's stopping them? Whether it will be the best curriculum ever is what I want to explore in this video. And that's what I would like to talk about in depth. I'd like to dive into the complexities of making your own language curriculum, because I think that for many people it might be a case of, oh, if only someone had told me. And this is coming from someone, I was trying to add up the number of curriculums I've made since I started teaching languages. I've made at least 4 or 5. I think I made 2 or 3 for English and at least 2 for French. So between 4 and 5 language curriculums that I built myself over the years. So let's get our little picture out to explain things clearer. The first problem you'll likely face is this. So you're standing at the beginning of the road, that's you there, and the language is all the way on the other side at the far end of the road. That's where the final result is. And you have all that distance to travel, but the road is very foggy. Firstly, you've never been to the end of the road, and second, you can't see the end of the road from where you're standing. And you might agree with this, the road is very foggy. But what I'm saying isn't shared by everyone. Some people will contradict this. Many learners will say the road isn't foggy at all. I can see perfectly well from where I'm standing, and I know perfectly well where I'm going. Even though I have not yet travelled the road, they will say that they see perfectly well where they're going. In my experience, this is usually people who are on the road and who consider that being in the process is as good as having done. And I think they strongly minimise the complexity of it. Like saying, yes, university is easy, look, I do it every day, I go to lectures. But going to lectures is one thing, having graduated is something else entirely, or having your degree rather than graduating. Is this necessarily a problem you can't surmount because we have to see the two sides of the question? No, you can surmount this problem. Of course you can overcome this hurdle, but there will be a lot of trial and error, which is not necessarily bad and can even make you a better language learner, more of an expert, at the cost, of course, of much time. Because not only do you not know where you're going, but the road is also very foggy. And it really depends, I think, if your goal is to become an expert in learning methods or just to learn the language, in which case you might want to find yourself a ready-made solution. A ready-made solution you can trust, of course. I'm an amateur photographer, and I once read that Edward Steichen, a very famous photographer, experimented taking pictures of the same objects with different shutter openings and films and exposure times, etc. So lots and lots of trial and error, and some of the greatest inventions ever come from trial and error. And the question is it what you want to do? If you do build your own language curriculum, I think you'll end up with 2 skills instead of 1, which can be great. It can be beneficial, it can make you more of an expert. It really depends what you want to accomplish. You'll likely end up good at the language, at least I hope so, but you'll also end up good at building curriculums. So you're standing there at the beginning of the road and at the end of the road, that's where the language is. The language when it's well known by yourself, when you have studied. Now, just as photography has the effect of parallax, so does our view on languages. So you might think that the direction is there, but in fact, it's over here. You might be moving through the fog towards what you imagine a language to be. You might imagine that it's about having plenty of vocabulary, or you might imagine that it's being great at pronunciation. You have a mental visualization, a mental representation of what the language is, because you've not yet learnt it. So you use your imagination, and you imagine, well, French is like this and the destination is probably over there. It's probably what it looks like. It's probably what the final result looks like. In my mind at least, good French looks like this and it's somewhere over there. Obviously, because there's a road to travel, you'll be needing a vehicle, a type of vehicle. So now you need to choose between different types of vehicles so to get to the end of the road in the fog, in the mist. So you might use your common sense or read what others say online and say, I need to converse with a partner, or I need to watch more films, or I need to drill nouns. That's the vehicle that you choose. Some might even think that the vehicle is technology. You know, it's technology based. That's the vehicle that will get me to the end of the road. Apps and things. Or that it's about language levels. That's my vehicle. A2, B1, B2 and so forth. There's different vehicles to get you to the end of the road, of which, by the way, you can't clearly see the destination. Unless you disagree with this, of course. But if only it was so easy, indeed. For each type of vehicle, there are different models. Not all conversation partners are the same. Not all grammar books are the same. So you'll have to know which one to choose among the different models to achieve the result you have not yet achieved. So here you're making a decision between different types of vehicles, different models, for a destination you haven't reached. When we speak about the practical tools we use to construct our self-made curriculum, it's not so easy either, because we can't weigh the priorities. We don't know the priorities of that language. We don't know. We've not yet been there. We can only imagine what the priorities of Italian, of French, of Arabic may be. Perhaps that if I spoke with a seasoned Dutch teacher, they would tell me that 90% of Dutch sentences are 3 words in length. Wow, I didn't know that. What a crazy hack. What a great hack to have. Or they'll say, well, most of it is done with a falling tone. Or they might have this unique perspective on Dutch along the lines of, well, if you can spot these 2 main sounds in every Dutch sentence, it will help you locate or understand better all the rest. I would never have guessed that this was the priority of Dutch. This is an example of an expert who can weigh the priorities of Dutch, and it's something I would never have suspected exists. I wouldn't even look for it. And I think we all know that we don't search for things we don't know exist. Why would we? A person wishing to make their own language curriculum will typically choose 2 or 3 tools. They might follow 2 different YouTubers, one who talks about their life, one who covers grammar. They might choose to read a novel or something in that foreign language, and they might memorize vocabulary words with flashcards. That's 4 different sources. Whether this can bring good results is definitely yes. But when? You know, it's quite possible to enter into Groundhog Day mode. Do this for 10 years and you'll be great. Yes, of course you will. It's going to take you a while though. Take an average adult with 4 hours a week to commit to learning. Is it really the ideal way to go about it? Well, first of all, it's time consuming, but also how do you harmonize the different learning sources and for which result? The YouTuber you listen to might speak like a teenager. The novel might be old-fashioned and stuffed with useless words or impractical words, as all novels really are, and the flashcards might be full of unnecessary vocabulary. Or just something far more practical. You learned a certain point of grammar with one of the YouTubers, which you either perfectly understood or partially understood. Well, it doesn't appear in the novel you're reading, so how do you harmonize those 2 sources, you see? Building your own curriculum to learn a language is possible. Yeah, it's entirely possible, and I think you'll see many people online claim it's easy even. If I had to do it, and I think I said I built between 4 and 5 curriculums, I'm sure I'm forgetting some. If I had to do it myself for a new language, I know very well that trial and error will be a massive part of it. I'll spend as much time finding the right resources, for example, for Danish. I like the Danish language, I like Danish. Finding the right person who can explain it, and the action of curriculum building might even outweigh the results. I might get really good at building my curriculum and spend a lot of time on it at the expense of my Danish. I would expect this from myself if I had to build a curriculum for a language I don't yet know. To conclude this video on curriculum building, I do hope it helps you measure the risk to reward a bit better if you've not yet made your own curriculum. And if you don't want to go through the trouble of making a curriculum for French, I do have a ready-made curriculum at wecommunicate.com. Try it out, see if you like it. You have your first 10 classes you'll find for free at wecommunicate.com. Try it, see if you like it. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chris. See you soon.